The Nile, the river that feeds 1/5 of Africa. A river of life. Imagine a river, not a small river. A river so long it crosses mountains, forests, and deserts. A river that passes through many nations. A river that gives water to millions of people every single day. That river is the Nile. It is one of the longest rivers on Earth. It flows from the heart of Africa all the way to the Mediterranean Sea. For thousands of years, it has carried water, food, and hope. Without the Nile, wide areas of land would be empty desert. Without the Nile, millions of families would struggle to survive. This is the story of the Nile, the river that feeds 1/5 of Africa. The Nile Basin. The Nile does not flow alone. It belongs to a vast natural system called the Nile Basin. The Nile Basin is the land where rain falls and eventually drains into the Nile. It covers almost 10% of Africa's land area. That is enormous. Inside this basin are green highlands, deep lakes, thick forests, wide wetlands, open farms, and dry deserts. Rain falls in the mountains of East Africa and Ethiopia. That rain does not disappear. It slowly travels through small streams. Those streams join rivers. Those rivers join lakes, and in time, all that water becomes the Nile. The basin is like a giant bowl. When rain fills the bowl, the Nile carries that water north. The river that feeds 1/5 of Africa. Today, about 200 to 300 million people depend on the Nile Basin. That means 1 out of every 5 Africans relies on this river. Think about that. One river supports farmers in their fields, fishermen on their boats, families in busy cities, children drinking clean water. People use Nile water to grow crops, to cook food, to wash, to produce electricity. In Egypt and Sudan especially, farming depends almost completely on the Nile. If the river slows down, crops suffer. If crops suffer, food becomes scarce. The Nile is not just water flowing, it is survival flowing. 11 countries, one shared river. The Nile Basin connects 11 nations: Burundi, DR Congo, Egypt, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda. Some of these countries are upstream. They receive heavy rain. They are where the river begins. Others are downstream. They receive very little rain. They depend almost entirely on water that starts far away. This makes the Nile special. It is not owned by one nation. It is shared by many. But sharing water is not always simple, because when one country changes the flow, others feel the effect. Where the Nile is born. The Nile has 2 main branches. The White Nile begins near Lake Victoria in East Africa. It flows slowly through Uganda and South Sudan. In South Sudan, it spreads into a massive wetland called the Sud. There, the river slows, widens, and feeds wildlife and communities. The Blue Nile begins far away in the Ethiopian highlands at Lake Tana. During rainy season, it becomes strong and fast. It carries most of the Nile's water and rich soil. These 2 great rivers meet in Khartoum, Sudan. From there, they become one powerful Nile. They travel north through the Sahara Desert. Finally, in Egypt, the river spreads into a wide green fan called the Nile Delta. Then it empties into the Mediterranean Sea. From mountain rain to seawater, that is the long journey of the Nile. The river that built history. Long ago, before modern dams and machines, the Nile flooded every year. When the floodwaters went down, they left behind rich, black soil. That soil made farming possible in the middle of the desert. Because of the Nile, ancient Egypt became strong. People grew wheat and vegetables. They built temples and pyramids. They developed writing, mathematics, and science. The Nile was their calendar, their food source, their lifeline. Without the Nile, one of the world's greatest civilizations would not exist. The river built history. The age of dams, controlling the river. But nature can be unpredictable. Some floods were too strong, some droughts were too long, so countries decided to control the river. In Egypt, the Aswan High Dam was completed in the 1960s. It created Lake Nasser, one of the world's largest man-made lakes in the world. The dam protects Egypt from major floods. It stores water for dry years. It produces electricity for millions. But it also changed the river. The fertile soil that once flowed freely is now trapped behind the dam. Farmers must use chemical fertilizers. The river no longer floods like before. In Sudan, dams help regulate water and generate power. In Ethiopia, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD, now stands on the Blue Nile. Ethiopia says it needs electricity for development and for its growing population. But Egypt worries. Almost all its fresh water comes from the Nile. If upstream water is held too long, downstream countries could suffer. Sudan stands between opportunity and concern. Dams bring electricity, they bring development, but they also bring tension. A river under a warming sky. And now, a new challenge has appeared. The world is getting warmer. Global temperatures have risen close to 2 degrees compared to the past. 2 degrees may sound small, but for a river system, it is powerful. More heat means more evaporation. Water disappears faster from lakes and dams and wetlands. Lake Nasser loses huge amounts of water every year under the hot sun. The subwetlands also lose water through evaporation. When temperatures rise, the river loses strength. Too much water or too little? In the past 20 years, the Nile Basin has faced unusual patterns. Some years bring severe drought. Rainfall decreases, rivers shrink, reservoirs drop. Other years bring extreme floods. Heavy rains fall suddenly. In Sudan, recent floods have destroyed homes and farmland. The river swings between extremes. Too little water, then too much water. Climate change is making the Nile less predictable. And when a river becomes less predictable, millions of lives become uncertain. The basin feels the pressure. Rain patterns are shifting in Ethiopia's highlands. Flooding has lasted longer in parts of South Sudan. In Egypt, rising sea levels threaten the Nile Delta. Salt water from the Mediterranean is slowly entering parts of the delta. If the sea rises further, fertile farmland could be damaged. Millions live in that low-lying region. The Nile now faces pressure from every direction. Changing rain, stronger floods, longer droughts, rising seas, higher evaporation. The river that once felt eternal now feels fragile. One river, one shared responsibility. This changes everything. The challenge is no longer only about dams, not only about politics. Now the challenge is climate change. No country can solve this alone. Not Ethiopia, not Sudan, not Egypt. The Nile Basin nations must cooperate. Smarter irrigation, better water storage, less waste, stronger flood protection, climate-ready farming. The Nile has survived for thousands of years, but its future depends on wise decisions. as long as it flows. The Nile is more than a river. It is a lifeline. It feeds 1/5 of Africa. It connects 11 nations. It built ancient civilizations. It still feeds millions today. But today, it also carries uncertainty. The river still flows, but its future depends on human choices. Because when the river struggles, millions struggle. And when the Nile flows strong, Africa breathes easier. The Nile has always carried life. Now it asks something in return: care, wisdom, cooperation. As long as the Nile flows from the highlands to the sea, hope flows with it. And that hope belongs to all of us.